Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutave Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Dasata Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I feel very honored to be able to speak about my dear and dearest friend, Bhakti Charu Maharaj. I've known him since he was a newly initiated sannyasi, and he came to visit me when I was living in France, and we became very good friends right from the beginning. And he told me about his project of translating all of Srila Prabhupada's books into Bengali. And at that time, I was very fortunate to have a very successful business, and I was donating large amounts of money to different devotees who were engaged in translating Prabhupada's books in foreign languages. And when Bhakti Charu told me what he was doing, I was so happy to hear that, and I gave him a large donation. And as the years passed by, we were always, whenever we met, he was very, very, let's say, kind to me, and always a friend, and full of warm and inviting exhortations so that I could, share prasadam with him, and we would talk intimately. And I always felt as if that I have a very special friend in this world, and his name is Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And of course, just his name is indicative of his character. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Charu means beautiful, and Bhakti means devotion. So Prabhupada chose just the right name for him, that is that he is beautiful by virtue of his devotion to Guru and Krishna. So what a wonderful name he received, and he lived up to that name's, let's say, high level of Krishna consciousness, because he was always engaged in the service of Srila Prabhupada. He was always lovingly speaking about Prabhupada, and of course of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the first time he met Srila Prabhupada was in sometime in January 1977, and soon, in a matter of, I would say, 7 to 8 months, he received first and second initiation, and then he received also sannyas. It happened very quickly. In March 1977, he was initiated first and second at the Gaur Purnima festival in Mayapur, India, and at the Snana Yatra ceremony in Vrindavan in June, probably in June 1977, he received sannyas. This is amazing, because Prabhupada recognized him very quickly to be an exceptional person who would be very instrumental in spreading Krishna consciousness. And there are a lot of similarities between Bhakti Charu Maharaj and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami also was very young when he met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the first meeting, the Lord embraced him, recognizing him. And he met him in Jagannath Puri. And very soon, the Lord took him under his own tutelage, and they spent 8 months together, very similar to Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who met Prabhupada in January 1977, and by June 1977, he had received first, second initiation and sannyas. So this is a remarkable, resemblance. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nantyalila, chapter 13, verse 117, it says, after 8 months, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to Raghunath Bhatta, the Lord flatly forbade him to marry. Do not marry, the Lord said. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains that Raghunath Das Goswami, or Raghunath Bhattacharya, had become a greatly advanced devotee while still unmarried. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could see this, and therefore he advised him not to begin the process of material sense gratification. Marriage is a concession for people who are unable to control their senses. Raghunath, however, being an advanced devotee of Krishna, naturally had no desire for sense gratification. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised him not to enter the bondage of marriage. Generally, a person cannot make much advancement in spiritual consciousness if he is married. He becomes attached to his family and is prone to sense gratification. Thus, his spiritual advancement is very slow or almost nil. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Raghunath Bhatta, when you return home, serve your aged father and mother, who are devotees, and try to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure Vaishnava who has realized God. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, one should note how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, advised Raghunath Bhattacharya to learn Srimad Bhagavatam. He advised him to understand Srimad Bhagavatam not from professional men, but from a real Bhagavata, a devotee. He also advised Raghunath Bhatta to serve his mother and father because they were both Lord Chaitanya's devotees. Anyone who wishes to advance in Krishna consciousness must try to serve the devotees of Krishna. As Narottam Dasa Thakur says, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Parecha Nistara Parecha Keba. Without serving a self-realized Vaishnava without serving a self-realized Vaishnava, no one has ever been released from a materialistic way of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have never advised Raghunath Bhatta to serve ordinary parents, but since his parents were Vaishnavas, the Lord advised him to serve them. One may ask, why shouldn't ordinary parents be served? As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.18, Guru nasyat swajano nasasyat, pita nasasyat janani nasasyat, daivi na tatsyat na patischa syam namocha vidya samupeta mrityum. One who cannot deliver his dependent from the path of birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a relative, a father, or a mother, or a worshipable demigod, nor should such a person become a husband. And then Prabhupada writes, everyone naturally gets a father and mother at the time of birth, but the real father and mother are those who can release their offspring from the clutches of imminent death. This is possible only for parents advanced in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, any parents who cannot enlighten their offspring in Krishna consciousness cannot be accepted as a real father and mother. The following verse from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.200 confirms the uselessness of serving ordinary parents. Lokiki vaidiki vapi ya kriya kriyate mune. Hari sevanum ku vaivaya sakarya bhaktin itchata. One should perform only those activities either worthy or prescribed by Vedic rules and regulations which are favorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. So, why am I reading this? Because not only Prabhupada recommended that Bhakti Charu Maharaj never get married, in other words, giving him sannyas, so he would never get married. But he also told him to carefully study Srimad Bhagavatam with the help of bona fide devotees. So not only did he study with the help of bona fide devotees, because he was directly in contact with Prabhupada, who asked him to translate the entire entire Srimad Bhagavatam into Bengali. And Prabhupada was carefully monitoring him during that period when he was engaged in doing that. So here we see two very close, let's say, parallels of the life of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami and Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And then Prabhupada continues, he says, concerning the study of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly advises that one avoid hearing from a non-Vaishnava professional reciter. In this connection, Sanatana Goswami quotes a verse from the Padma Purana. Avaishnava mukho griyanam putam hari katam vitam shavanam naiva kartavyam sarpotis tam yata paya. No one should hear or take lessons from a person who is not a Vaishnava. Even if he speaks about Krishna, such a lesson should not be accepted, for it is like milk touched by the lips of a serpent. End of quote. Nowadays, it is fashionable to observe Bhagavat Saptaha and hear Srimad Bhagavatam from persons who are anything but advanced devotees or self-realized souls. In other words, hearing from persons who are not self-realized souls. There are even many Mayavadis who read Srimad Bhagavatam to throngs of people. Many Mayavadis have recently begun reciting Srimad Bhagavatam in Vrindavana. And because they can present the Bhagavatam with word jugglery, twisting the meaning by grammatical tricks, materialistic persons who go to Vrindavana as a matter of spiritual fashion like to hear them. All this is clearly forbidden by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We should note carefully that since these Mayavadis cannot personally know the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam, they can never deliver others by reciting it. On the other hand, an advanced devotee of the Lord is free from material bondage. He personifies Srimad Bhagavatam in life and action. Therefore, we advise that anyone who wants to learn Srimad Bhagavatam must approach such a realized soul. So, again, there's a parallel. Lord Chaitanya tells Raghunath Bhatta Goswami not to hear Bhagavatam from a speculator or a Mayavadi or a non-devotee, but he should learn from a pure Vaishnava who has realized God. So, who else would be such a person as Srila Prabhupada himself, who monitored Bhakti Charu Maharaj's translation and of Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's rendition of the translation of Bhagavatam and the purports that Srila Prabhupada wrote. So, again, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Prayacha Keba. That is, without serving a self-realized Vaishnava, no one has ever been released from the materialistic way of life. So we see that Prabhupada personally took Bhakti Charu Maharaj under his personal guidance and therefore, and gave him this wonderful name that one is beautiful by virtue of devotional service, and definitely Bhakti Charu is definitely that. And in this way, Bhakti Charu Maharaj dedicated his whole life to serving the mission of Lord Chaitanya and through the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. So if we quickly hear all his accomplishments, you'll see that everything he did was to please Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya or Krishna. He also produced the whole life story of Prabhupada in video that was televised throughout India, and hundreds and thousands of people saw it, and they're continuing to see it today. And he built a beautiful temple in Ujjain dedicated to Prabhupada and Krishna. He also started other projects in Mayapur and in the United States. And he was always engaged in encouraging the devotees to be sincere followers of Prabhupada and Krishna. So that is the sign of a remarkable Vaishnava who has dedicated his life completely to the service of the Lord. This is also explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, and verse number 17, where Srila Prabhupada says, no one can create anything without the sanction of the Lord, since everyone sees according to his ability or his own ability. This ability is also awarded by the Lord according to one's willingness to render service unto the Lord. One must therefore be voluntarily willing to render service unto the Lord, and thus the Lord will empower the doer in proportion to his surrender unto the latest feet of the Lord. Well, this is basically paraphrase of the verse, Yeitamam prapadyante tam stitaiva bhajamyaham mamavat manavartante manishya partasarvasaha, where Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Prita Arjuna. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam introduction on page 17, Prabhupada writes, the Lord responds to the proportion of the devotee's love for him. And again, he wrote to Tejas Prabhu, May 20th, 1970, and he says, the Lord will reveal himself to you in proportion to your sincere efforts to satisfy him only. So this is, again, a description of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He completely surrendered to Prabhupada very quickly and dedicated the rest of his life unfailingly to the service of Prabhupada and Krishna. And therefore, for such a surrendered soul, the Lord reveals himself proportionately to the surrender and the service of the devotee. So in this way, Bhakti Charu Maharaj was empowered by Prabhupada and Krishna to perform amazing feats in their service. This is a practical demonstration of this verse, 4th chapter, 11th verse. And in that verse, it says, in the transcendental world, it says, but Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and thus anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have Krishna or serve Krishna. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. One devotee may want Krishna as Supreme Master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still another as his lover. Krishna awards all the devotees equally according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshippers. The pure devotees both here and in the transcendental abode associate with him in person and are able to render personal service of the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. So this is a description of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who completely surrendered to Prabhupada and completely dedicated himself to glorifying Krishna and spreading the glories of Krishna all over the world. He made disciples in many parts of the world, in India, in the United States, in Europe, in Russia, in Australia, in North America, South America. He was a Parivrajikacharya, a transcendental personality who went anywhere and everywhere. And because he was completely surrendered, Vachivegam, Manasakota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarapasta Vegam, Etam Vegam, Yor Vishaheta Derab, Sarvam Apivam Pritivim Nasasyat. He can go anywhere and everywhere and inspire people to become devotees. So, and then plus he started projects that are continuing today, just as Prabhupada did, and all with the purpose of pleasing Guru and Krishna. That is the secret of success, when you please your spiritual master and you please Krishna. This is further explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasayat matpara ananya maya vijogena mam vyayanta upasate te samaham samudartam nitya samsara sagarat Bhavanina chirat partha mai avesita chetasam. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, meaning Krishna, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha or Arjuna, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So this again has very significant reference to Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Let's hear what Prabhupada says, and then I will express my very intimate feelings for Bhakti Charu Maharaj. It is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. In pure devotional service, one comes to the realization that God is great and that the individual soul is subordinate to Him. His duty, therefore, is to render service to the Lord, and if he does not, then he will render service to Maya. As stated before, the Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. Therefore, one should be fully devoted. One should fix his mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve Him. One should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. That is the standard of devotional service. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His life's mission is to please Krishna, and he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction, just as Arjuna did in the battle of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Such transcendental chanting attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead. In other words, the more we engage in chanting the holy names of the Lord sincerely, for the pleasure of the Lord, the more we become attracted to Krishna, because we are constantly hearing about Krishna's transcendental qualities that are unparalleled. No one can equal or surpass Krishna. Everyone is subordinate to Krishna. And Krishna's pure devotee can deliver Krishna to even the lowest person in existence by their mercy. So in this way, we see that Prabhupada delivered Krishna to Bhakti Charu Maharaj very quickly, recognizing his qualities, gave him all the initiations to pummeled him right to the top of Krishna consciousness, preaching around the world. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj never let go of the baton, never let go of that great benediction that he received from Prabhupada, and expanded the preaching of Krishna consciousness all over the world, just as Prabhupada did, and encouraged devotees. And he was actually a dear friend of many, many devotees, not just myself, but many, many other devotees who considered him a very close, very intimate, and very advanced devotee that helped them savor their Krishna consciousness and expand and dedicate themselves to spreading this movement throughout the world. So, therefore, the Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay he will deliver a pure devotee thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. Te samaham samudarta mrityu samsara sagara. So, I can safely say that Prabhupada did this for Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He delivered him very swiftly. After his years of dedication to him, he delivered him and took him back to Godhead with him. And the Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay, he will deliver a pure devotee thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process, and others take the opportunity in various ways. But as far as the devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the Lord himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. In the Varaha Purana, this verse appears, Nayami Paramam Stanam Archir Adi Gatim Vina. Prarudaskandam arubhya yatecham anivaritaha. The purport of this verse is that a devotee does not need to practice Astanga Yoga in order to transfer his soul to the spiritual planets. The responsibility is taken by the Supreme Lord himself. He clearly states here that he himself becomes the deliverer. A child is completely cared for by his parents, and thus his position is secure. Similarly, a devotee does not need to endeavor to transfer himself by yoga practice to other planets. Rather, the Supreme Lord, by his great mercy, comes at once, riding on his bird carrier Garuda, and at once delivers the devotee from material existence. Although a man who has fallen in the ocean may struggle very hard and may be very expert in swimming, he cannot save himself. But if someone comes and picks him up from the water, then he is easily rescued. Similarly, the Lord picks up the devotee from his material existence. One simply has to practice the easy process of Krishna consciousness and fully engage himself in devotional service. Any intelligent man should always prefer the process of devotional service to all other paths. So, from the Narayana Shastra, this is confirmed. The purport of this verse, Yavai Sadhana Sampati, is that one should not engage in the different processes of fruitive activity or cultivate knowledge by the mental speculative process. One who is devoted to the Supreme Personality can attain all the benefits derived from other yogic processes, speculation, rituals, sacrifices, charities, etc. That is the specific benediction of devotional service. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, a devotee of the Lord can approach the supreme destination easily and happily, but this destination cannot be approached by any other process of religion. The conclusion is of Bhagavad Gita, stated in the 18th chapter, Sarvadhamam Parityaja, Mamekam Saranam Vraja, Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo, Mokshisyami Mahasuchaha. One should give up all other processes of self-realization and simply execute devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That will enable one to reach the highest perfection of life. There is no need for one to consider the sinful actions of his past life, because the Supreme Lord fully takes charge of him. Therefore, one should not futilely try to deliver himself in spiritual realization. Let everyone take shelter of the Supreme Omnipotent Godhead, Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj is an example of this. He went as a young man to Europe and to Germany and to get education. But that is not really education. That is learning to be a vishayi, or a sense gratifier in the material world. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj understood that even before he met Prabhupada, that he did not really get education. He just got a training how to make money, and the goal of it is sense gratification. So everyone that's Microsoft certified or expert in C++ or JavaScript and is capable of getting a job in Amazon or Microsoft or Twitter or Facebook or all these different companies, Google, that is not real education. That's simply learning how to make money to spend for sense gratification, and that'll keep a person in the material world. The real example is Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He didn't use that education that he got in Germany for sense gratification. He started to look for a bona fide spiritual master, and by his great fortune, he met Srila Prabhupada, and he met the devotees and Srila Prabhupada, and he was immediately taken under the protection of Srila Prabhupada, who recognized his exceptional qualities, and quickly he was transformed into a genuine devotee by associating with the purest devotee, Srila Prabhupada, and he took up the process of Krishna consciousness and spread it like Srila Prabhupada all over the world. So we see that the greatest education is Srimad Bhagavatam. heard from a bona fide devotees, not from speculators and Mayavadis. And real education is Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, carefully read and studied under the tutelage of bona fide devotees, page by page, verse by verse. That is real education. The other education that we get in the material world is all about how to make money to engage in sense gratification. And that is a perfect ticket to take birth again and start all over in the cycle of birth and death through the 8,400,000 species of life that we already went through to get to the human form of body. And if we waste the human experience cultivating mundane knowledge in universities and high schools and middle schools and elementary schools and preschool, we will go back into the cycle of birth and death and start all over again. It's a hopeless cycle that leads to failure. But the real cycle that leads to success is first developing a little faith and appreciation of devotees, and then associating with devotees and learning from devotees the absolute importance of bona fide shiksha and diksha initiation. And then under the tutelage of bona fide devotees and spiritual master who was given Harinam in the first initiation, one gets rid of all their anarthas, all their bad habits, and then they develop strong faith, not simply appreciation, but very strong faith, and with that, and functioning with that strong faith, and having shed their bad qualities, and taking up Krishna conscious transcendental life, they develop a taste for hearing and chanting, and from that taste for hearing and chanting, that ruchi, they develop anashakti, real attachment to Krishna and Krishna consciousness and devotee association and sankirtan and preaching and prasadam and all these wonderful things. And it's basically transcendental life. And then they become, they begin to feel the absolute ecstasy of chanting Hare Krishna, not just a little bit, but constantly. And that is the previous stage right before pure love of God. So this is the process of Krishna consciousness. This is real success. This is the real life that we should aspire for. Not being Microsoft certified, but we should be Prabhupada certified by hearing regularly Prabhupada's translation and purports of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which he distilled from all the great acharyas and ultimately from Krishna himself, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, and the great devotees such as Sukadeva Goswami and Sutta Goswami and others who spoke Bhagavad Gita to persons like Yudhisthira Maharaj and Parikshit Maharaj and so forth. This is real education. Everything else is junk. It's not education. It's misleading. And now, when you have a bona fide spiritual master and he has gone back to Godhead, your duty as a disciple is to always worship and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. Once you perform, one should remember the spiritual master and offer obeisances to him. And one should always strive to please the spiritual master, because the spiritual master is not dead. He simply left a material body that is useless, and has assumed his actual eternal spiritual body and his eternal spiritual relationship to Krishna and to Guru and Krishna. So therefore, everything is alive, everything is dynamic, everything is progressive in spiritual life. And if you remain faithful to your spiritual master, if you're always remembering your spiritual master's instructions and letting them be the guide in your life and the inspiration in your life, you will also experience the same yetamam papadyante tam statava bhajamyaham mamavartante manushya partha sarvasaha. You will also experience transcendental relationship with your Gurudev and Krishna and all other bona fide devotees and go back to Godhead. So thank you very much. Please remember these points, meditate on them, and make your life a complete success in Krishna, transcendental Krishna consciousness. Hari Bol.